Okay, so if you're trying to unwrap a building or a complex object, it's often useful to try to do it, especially if things are modular. Unwrap the initial piece, and then you can try to kind of duplicate it. So if your pivots are set up correctly, they're centered well, they're consistent throughout the model. I'll show you method one that I use for this. Honestly, if something's like a cylindrical shape, then I will probably use either automatic or UV. So I'll just I'll show you the UV editor while I'm doing this. In this case, I'm not focused on packing the UVs, but just getting an initial layout so I can see that they're consistent. So I'll go to automatic. So that usually covers all sides. You can use, like I said, cylindrical for more cylindrical based objects. So sometimes I will use cylindrical, and it does kind of give you this cylinder that is oriented. So a lot of times I'll kind of make sure it's wrapping around, which is this awkward little controller here, but yeah, you kind of bring the yellow and the red closer together. For some reason, I'm having some issue with that, but anyway, so that's one way you can do this. The way I kind of visually check, though, the UVs is to simply apply to all objects. I'll apply a standard Lambert, and I use the same material for everything, just so you have consistency, okay? So I'll go to automatic, sorry, not automatic, go to checker. And I usually make this kind of a light gray and white checker. I'll hit 6 as well, just so I can see the view on this. And then I'll set this to typically a repeat of 20 by 20, upwards of 40 by 40. So lately I'm just using 30 by 30. So right now everything has no UVs, right? But if I literally grab everything, one of the things before I do this, I should check is that sometimes you scale objects. And if you take a look, sometimes you may have scaled them at some point non-uniformly, so it's like 20% more on one axis and another percentage on another axis. So what can happen is when you UV this, I'll just show you. If you do, let's say automatic on this piece, and I'll hit 6, hopefully so we can see that. Just make sure this is applied. Oh, sorry, I might have a material override here. Yeah, I'll turn off use default material. There we go. So yeah, sometimes you'll get skewing in part because of the scaling, right? So what the tool kind of does is it actually applies UVs based on if this thing was proportionally like square, but this thing is not. So what I usually recommend on these pieces, or pretty much on all pieces, you can go to modify, freeze transforms. The one thing I won't do, because you might have unique rotations. So if you're trying to, let's say, swap in a new version of an object, you don't want to replace that. And the translation as well, we don't want to reset that to 0 or something neutral. So I just want to reset the scaling. So it's a good idea to just freeze all your transforms. And then I typically will do Alt-Shift-D, which is delete history. So now if you check this out, I can very simply, literally just try to go and do UV automatic everything. And hey, what do you know? It's pretty good, right? So you can use automatic a lot. Sometimes I cheat a little bit too. Some of these objects are not showing up, so I'll just double check and see, make sure that they have the right material assigned. Also, if you build things with like curves and the sweep modifier, you shouldn't reset UVs on these. These typically come with UVs, but if necessary, you can go into automatic, right? And automatic will do an okay job, okay? So sometimes too, you can also try to cheat and do planar. So planar will sort of take a plane and apply it through. So sometimes with automatic, you get broken chunks. And with this, you can sort of say, okay, maybe I'll do planar, but you want to pick a different axis for it to face. So I'll try on Y, right? The most logical approach would be kind of facing it from this view, basically. So in that case, it's probably going to be Z. So if I hit apply again, then we see it sitting there. There is some other issue. I think this thing has probably like a thin box when it probably just needs a plane for this blocking piece. So I think what I'll do is I'll maybe just fix that. So sometimes you'll catch other issues that can be fixed relatively easily. The polygons in this case are facing the wrong way. So simply hit mesh reverse. Yeah, let's see. Let's go back to UV, planar. Yeah, there might be another issue here. Mesh display reverse. Yeah, I'm not sure what's happening with that, but anyway, so sometimes I'll use kind of planar maps as a simple way to alter some of this stuff. And again, if you do have this repeating, you can, ideally I would kind of group this stuff together as an object, and then you can reclone them. That's one method of doing it. Or sometimes I'll do replace objects, and then, so yeah, in this case I would just probably shift and drag down, and then just delete the other parts that were there. So that's kind of a fast way. If you forget to set it up early on when you're building, this is probably the best way to deal with this sort of stuff. I would suggest just making sure that the UVs are a relatively consistent scale. So I'll just select all the shells, and we can just do a very basic layout. I'm not, again, super picky about, sometimes too, by the way, there's what's called non-manifold geometry. It's essentially when you have kind of a bit of broken mesh somewhere. This will fix it. Now, it may fix it in a way you're not happy with, so you may want to try to find the issue by selecting it, and I can show you how to do that in a minute, but I'll ignore it for now and let Unwrap essentially fix the layout issue here. Let's see if that works. Oh, sorry, I hit fix. There we go. So it's saying clean up the UVs or clean up the mesh before. So sometimes if you're trying to find a problem, so what you can do is go to mesh cleanup, and usually the options at this stage, I turn on pretty much all the options that are here except for this option of faces with 0 map area. That basically means find polygon faces that have no UVs. So in this case, I'm doing the UVs, so I'm not sure I want to do that because it'll literally shrink down UV-less areas to like a single point or a single vertex. Not a great thing. And you can also tell it to select the areas too. So if I hit apply, right, and then I hit F, usually it'll kind of show me, hey, there's like some areas in here. In this case, it looks like just like a few kind of little edges in and around some spots here. So it looks like I can probably let the software take care of that. So I'm going to, instead of having it selected, I'm going to basically, again, select all the objects in the scene. I'm going to hit apply. And it looks like it's, again, selected the problem objects and clean them up. So I usually go into wireframe for that because I can sort of see through everything and just sort of find the issues there. So let's go back to UV. Generally a good idea to clean up your mesh anyways, like before doing anything, including like rigging and stuff like that, because you want to make sure your mesh is clean. So yeah, in this case, I'm still having errors. So I'm going to just double check one more time. We can also hit Control 1 maybe to isolate, but it looks like it's just particular edges. So let's try it again. I'll just see if I can find the selection. Yeah, it looks like it's clean. Oh, the other thing is I may have selected some other objects. So I think I'm seeing, you know, there's like some profiles here, right? Sometimes if you're selecting non-mesh objects, that can be a problem. So I might just make sure any curves and stuff are deleted. There we go. So that could be part of the error. Okay, let's try that one more time. Yeah, sometimes when the mesh fixing fails in Maya, I will check the mesh and fix it in ZBrush. ZBrush has very good tools for this. I would try to do this post UV if you've got all your individual elements UV'd, and I've temporarily combined this to one object. So I'm going to go Z it back. And sometimes when it comes back, you get this kind of distorted normal. So I will maybe try to just go back to mesh display, soften, harden edge, which should fix that. It definitely looks like maybe the text was part of the issue here. So that's something to maybe consider or reconsider. Anyways, I'm going to just apply the checker again. It looks like, yeah, possibly because of the fixing of the mesh, you may lose your UVs. So again, you want to be careful before you start unwrapping, maybe to check your mesh and make sure it's clean. So I'll go back to pretty much automatic in this case and let it do its magic. Okay, so everything now is kind of contained, and you see the checker is rather large. So again, I'm going to be looking at still images to evaluate how well the UVs appear. So I would just make sure the checker pattern is dense enough. So my recommendation may not fit every project. So if I go to 40 by 40, that's a little bit better, but I might in this case even try to double this to 80 by 80. Maybe even go a bit higher, 120 by 120. Just so I can kind of see, right, at a certain distance, that, you know, there's good uniformity of the UVs, that they are fit well, there's no distortion. Where you can tell there's distortion is basically when the checker starts to stretch into rectangles. So sometimes I will select pieces like this to just do a quick kind of unfold. So let's see, double click this piece. And I'll just try to literally just do a quick unfold. Looks like there's a problem there. Okay, and that can sort of work out some of the issues, okay? Again, this mesh appears to have a number of technical problems, but yeah. So that's a quick and easy way to get UVs. One other trick that I use for objects that you're just doing from a fixed camera view. So let's say we're dealing with a specific element. You could take an element, let's say like this, and go to UV, go camera based. Now this will be very dense, but I'll adjust my checker pattern for this. So you can cheat a little bit here. So let's say if I set this back down to 80 by 80 or 40 by 40, you see the checker looks good from this angle, right? But as soon as you twist to the side, you see that's when you get stretching. This is also like a 3D matte painting projection trick you can do where you just literally do everything as like a flat UV and just project the texture into the scene. We'll be dealing with that very soon, but again, it's kind of about optimizing your work for the best view. And if you're not doing a camera move or anything too extensive, you can get away with a lot, right? Cheating a bit, taking some shortcuts.